would take a quick look at the file storage service and some of its workings in action. My name is Rohit Rahi and I'm part of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure team. So let me first show you the setup for the demo. So as you can see here, we are going to use a VCN with this particular address space, and we are going to run this in a US East, which is a multi-AD region, but I'm just going to use a single AD. I could have used multiple ADs, but I'm just going to, it's a demo, going to use a single AD here. In this particular VCN, I'm going to create a public subnet and a private subnet, and you can see some of the address spaces here. And of course, as we talked in the virtual cloud network module, the private subnet will have its own route table and security list, and the public subnet will have its own route table and security list, right? That's a good best practice to do that. The public subnet, as you would have guessed by now, would have an internet gateway, so we could access it via the internet. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to spin up a couple of instances and I'm going to SSH into them. Now, there is no requirement to do that in real life situations. You could run all of this in a private subnet and still access those clients using Bastion host or something, right? So you absolutely don't have to just follow this demo in a real life situation. It's a demo. I'm just going to show you something quickly. So I'm just having this set up. Now this is where I'm going to run my mount target and my file system here on the private subnet. So it's all secure. It's private. And then in the public subnet, I'm going to run two clients. These are NFS clients where which will access this particular file system here through the mount target. And what I'm going to show you in the demo is the client one would has read write access, and of course client two also has read write access. Both of them would make changes and the visible either of them. Uh, and this is will show you a quick example of a shared file system where data is managed as a file hierarchy, right? And both clients can read and write to the same file system and access it and manage it, right? So with that, let me quickly jump to the uh, console and start the demo. So right now I'm in the console. We have been using this OCI console for some of the lecture series. We have this burger menu here. If I click on that, I can see links for various services. Right here is the file storage service. So we're going to use that. You can see I'm in US East. We could have used another region as well. So if I click on file storage, first thing you see here is there is no file system here. I can click file system and create one. There is a mount target, and again there is no mount target here, right? So if I just click on create file system, it creates a file system, it creates a mount target, and so on and so forth, right? And it picks up a VCN here. Now this is the VCN we were using in our VCN module and the compute module. I don't want to use the same VCN, right? I want to, like I showed you on the slide, I want to have a new VCN which I'm going to use, right? So let me just cancel this. And first thing, let me go and create a virtual cloud network really quickly. So this, because I'm doing a file storage service demo, so uh, I will call this FSS VCN. And I'm going to pick the address space which I had in my slide, 1016, and I'll click create VCN. Now the VCN is created. There is no internet gateway, there is no subnet, etc. Right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mount target subnet. Regional is fine. I could have done AD specific as well. It doesn't matter because I'm just going to use one AD 10.0.1.0/24. This is the address space I had on the slide, and I'm going to make this a private subnet, right? Because I don't want this to be exposed to the internet because my mount target, my file system, I want to keep them secure. I will choose the default route table, and I'll choose the default security list, and I'll change this subsequently because now we can edit them. If we have a new one created, we could have used that here, or we could edit it later on. So let me just make sure it's a private subnet. Yep. Let me create this subnet here, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another subnet for the clients. I'm calling it compute subnet. And this is where my uh, compute instances would be running, right? So this is the address space which I had on the slide, and I'm going to make it a public subnet, right? And I'm also, again, choosing the default tables, but we'll change that, right? So I'll choose the default security list and the default route table, right? And this is a public subnet. Okay, got it. So create my compute subnet, right? So we have the compute subnet, we have the mount target subnet. First thing first, let me just go ahead and create a private route table here, because I don't want my mount target and file system to be exposed through the default route table, where I'm going to have a route going to the internet gateway. So I created a private route table, and let me just go ahead and create a private security list. Right, pretty straightforward. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to create an internet gateway and add a route in the route table for the internet gateway. These are things again you would have seen in the virtual cloud network module. So nothing uh, complex here. This is basically the basic steps in order for me to SSH into an instance running in a public subnet, right? So I do this here. And then last thing, let me go into my VCN and change my mount target subnet to use the private subnet here, private security list here, and also change my route table to use the private route table. So mount target, edit, just a security list here. The console keeps changing, so I think it's right here. So if you click edit here, now here you can see I will choose my private route table, right? So really straightforward. Now we have mount target subnet, which has its own route table and its security list, and we have the compute subnet, which has its own route table and security list, right? So the basics are done now. So let me go to my file storage and create a file system here, right? So I can just come here and create a file system now, right? Pretty straightforward. But I want to show you how we talked about this in the in the previous module. So first, let me create a mount target, and this we are doing a demo. So it's a mount target demo. It's mount target and the file system are AD specific, so it's picking up 81. I could have chosen another AD, that's fine. My subnet is regional, I could have done that, but 81 is fine. And right here I'll pick the VCN we just created, FSS VCN, right? And now for the subnet, I don't want the compute subnet, I want the mount target subnet, right? Because it's private, and that's where I'm going to create my mount target. Now there are some advanced options here. I could provide an IP address, private IP address, hostname. Probably I'm just going to leave them blank and have them the system populate that automatically, right? So as I create the mount target, you would see that first thing I want to see here is that I get a private IP address. Remember, the way we identify a mount target is by that IP address, and that IP address along with the export path is the way we expose a file system to the clients, right? So that's how it works. So right now you can see I got 10.0.1.3, and this is in the address space of 10.0.1.0/24. As you recall, the first three IP addresses cannot be used, right? So the first one, .0, is reserved, and reserved for, you cannot, that's your network address. And then the first two IPs and the last IP in a VCN gets reserved, right? So I cannot use those, but I could use the 10.0.1.3 right here. So right now if I go into, I can see my mount target is running. Now if I can create a file system here. So so when I click on file system, it's one click thing, right? I can just create here and it will create my file system, but I don't want to just use the default names. Let me call this file system demo. 81 is fine. I could use Oracle managed keys for server-side encryption, or I could bring in my own keys. I'm just going to let Oracle use the Oracle managed keys. And right here is the export path. Now remember, export path is how the file systems are exposed in a given mount target to the clients. This is how you expose them. So through this path here, export path, I could choose another name or something, right? But never use just a root here, right? Because then if you use the root, you cannot have another path on the same file system, right? Because the path systems have to be mutually exclusive. So that don't do that, but other than that, any path is fine. And then right here you can see it shows the mount target demo mount target we have, because we have the only one mount target. If I wanted to create one more, I could just come here and create a new mount target. I could have done that, because I have already this mount target running, so I'm just going to use that. So with that, let me just click create here, and now my file system would be created, right? An export path is there. So now I could just click on mount commands here, and I get the commands to use with my instances in order to mount uh, this file system to my local to my clients, to my compute instances. And using that, now I can access the file system, right? So it's rather straightforward um, way where we are managing all the complexities behind the scene, and you get a file system service highly available running in the cloud, right? So pretty amazing that way. Now a couple of things to keep in mind. Let me go back to my mount target. We did this, but one thing which I want to talk about is, if you click here, you can see that before we can mount a file system, we must configure security list rules to allow traffic to the mount target subnet. If we don't do that, then your clients would not be able to access the mount target and hence the file system. Now, which ports do we need to open? We need to open stateful ingress TCP ports 111, 2048 to 2050, and UDP ports 111 and 2048. And we need to do that for stateful ingress, and we also need to open certain ports for stateful egress. Now you might say, why are we doing ingress and egress? Because didn't we say that when ingress, basically it's stateful. So if for a packet coming in, you automatically guarantee the packet going out. Yes, we do that. The reason we do this is this concept around the TCP connections to survive the reboots. Now remember, we talked about the fact that um, the mount target is highly available. So if I go back to my slide, if you see this mount target, so if the mount target here is highly available, right? So what happens is, if your clients are connecting through this, right? So let's say this is a client, of course the response is going to go back. But what happens is, because it's highly available, sometimes your mount target has to be moved to another machine in case this underlying server has a problem, right? Or it has a reboot or something, right? So in case this one moves here, your packets which are coming from this, suppose the packets were coming in flight, now packets have to go out from here. Now the packets have no way to figure out how to go out, because the source the place where they were running is now different. It's on a different server. So that's why we say egress here, and we say source is is the port here, whatever the port was, let's say 111. So that way we guarantee that for TCP connections in flight, they can survive the reboot. TCP connections coming from the client. So that's why we have both egress, ingress and egress. So let's go ahead and quickly do this. So we go to the mount target subnet. Mount target subnet has its own security list. So let me just go to the private security list, and you can see that right now it has no ingress or egress, right? Because we just created this a while back. So I could have done this right now. I could have pick the CIDR for my public subnet here, 10.0.2.0/24, but I'm just going to do it for the whole subnet, for the whole VCN. The reason being, if there are other subnets, they could just use this the security list. Otherwise, I'll have to go it and open for each individual subnet if I have more than one. So again, just a demo. You could have, in real life, you would go and open the mount target subnet for specific uh, instances and the subnets where they are running, right? So TCP source can be anything. Destination has to be 2048 to 2050. I'll add another rule. Same cider here. TCP has to be 111. I'll open another one here. TCP, and this is UDP, and the port has to be 111, and another one, and it's UDP again, and the port has to be 2048. So let me make sure I have all the ports. So IP is fine, the VCN CIDR, TCP 2048 to 2050, TCP 111, port is fine, destination UDP 111 and UDP 2048, right? So this is my ingress rules. Now I also need to do egress, otherwise what we just talked about is not gonna happen, right? So I TCP, and now my source port is the ports we talked about, right? So 2048 to 2050. We need to add another one. uh, source is source is TCP, source is 111, and the third one, source, it's UDP, and the source is 111, right? All right, so egress rules, TCP 20482050, TCP 11111, and then UDP 111, right? So we add these egress rule, right? So now my rules are done here. Now if I go back to my security list, and if I talk about the other security list I had, the default security list, that is still allowing SSH, and that's port 22, so I can SSH into that, and that's pretty much it, right? So that's fine because I'm using that to as part of my public subnet. So now last thing I need to do, my mount target is done, is created, my file system is created. Now I need to test it out, right? So let me create a couple of instances really quickly, and so I can test out my file system and mount target, right? So I'll say FSS1, Oracle Linux is fine. But the virtual machine shape is fine. Right now I see that FSS VCN, and I'll compute subnet is chosen here. I'll assign a public IP because I want to use it. I'm running Windows subsystem for Linux. So let me just get my public key, or say public private key here. It's running. Let me just copy the public portion of the key, paste it here. All right, and then click create. And then let me just do that for one more instance. So these become my two compute instances, which I'm going to use to connect to my uh, file system and mount target and run my demo. So FSS2 virtual machine is fine, it compute subnet is fine, assign a public IP address, and right here I can paste my SSH keys, do that, and click create. And you would see that these instances would be up and running in a few seconds. Unfortunately, I missed supplying a public IP here. We'll solve that. We'll go into the VNIC, and we'll assign a public IP there. It takes literally a few seconds to do that. So let's see if the instance is up and running. It's still coming up. Let me go back to my file system, and let me make sure that the ports are all correctly open. So if I click on mount target, click here, click on this. So stateful ingress TCP, yes, we opened those. UDP 111, stateful egress. Now the source port is 111 2048 205, UDP source port 11 111. All right, all right. So the ports are all open. Let's see if one of the compute instances is up and running. Still getting provisioned. All right, looks like the compute instances are running. So let me just copy the public IP address, clear the screen. Now it's Oracle Linux, so the username is OPC, and let me SSH into the first instance. All right, so right now I'm in the instance, and I could go and I could access the file system, and I'll do the same thing for the other instance as well. So right here, if I click on file storage, file systems, and click on the export path. Remember, export path is how you expose a file system to your clients. So right now I need to run some NFS utility. I'm in Oracle Linux. If you were using something else like Ubuntu or Windows Server, you would have a different set of commands. Just follow those commands. So it looks like it's done. Let me just clear the screen. Let me just create a local mount point, pretty straightforward. And right here, I'm going to mount the file system. And bingo, there we go, right? So now if I cd into my local mount point, right now I can see there is no file here, right? So I could go ahead and create a file. I am from FSS1. And I could save this file, right? It's as simple as that. Now I'm actually writing this file in the local file system. The other instance we had, let's go ahead and run the same instructions on the other instance. The issue is the other instance, we forgot to assign a public IP address here, right? So you can see, actually we have a public IP. Sorry, I thought for some reason we didn't have. So it's actually then really straightforward. Let me go to the other instance, just log into the other instance, SSH, and right here, let me just go back to my file system and run those commands again. Create a local mount point, and then I'll mount the file system to that local mount point. Okay, really straightforward. Now if I come and cd to that local mount point and run a ls command, I can see this file is existing, right? And if I do a cat, I can see that the file has this content which we just wrote earlier. So if I want to open this file, and let's say now I want to change it, sorry, let's do, let's save this file. And now if I go back to my first instance and do a cat, there you go, I can see that the changes appear here, right? So very quickly, what this showed you are two instances running in the same subnet, right? We could have chosen different subnets, that's fine, but literally you have two subnets running here, instances running here, and these instances are accessing this common file system, and they are reading writing to the file system. I can control the kind of access these have, and I could create another file. I could create second file system here. I could create a third file system here, and so on and so forth, right? So hopefully this gives you a quick overview of how the file storage system works. It's a highly available file system in the cloud, massive, with massive capacity. It's scalable, elastic, and it's really, really simple to use. Thank you for watching this demo. In the next module, we'll talk about FSS security. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to this module on file storage service security.